Hi, this is Dr. Beals, and this presentation is going to go over the steps to apply for your licensure in the state of Missouri. Now, I know several of you may be applying for your licensure in different states, and we have placed that information for those particular states in your course in leadership. If, of course, you need help with applying for licensure in a different state, I'm happy to help you with that. Just reach out to me by email to set up an appointment time. So the objectives of this presentation, we're going to review preparing for licensure, getting your license and maintaining your license in your practice as a registered nurse. Here's a link to a YouTube video on a graduate that is very good. Please feel free to watch that at your leisure. So the Missouri State Board of Nursing, or whatever particular state you practice in, governs your practice as a professional nurse, licensed practical nurse as well. The Missouri State Board of Nursing has a mission to protect the public's health and safety. And how they do this is by regulating nursing education, licensure, and nursing practice. The Missouri State Board of Nursing has a rich history, and nursing regulation actually began at the beginning of the 1900s. There are 9 board members that are appointed, and including with those board members in the State Board of Nursing are office team members. At the time of this presentation, there were 137,000 licensed nurses in the state of Missouri. The Missouri State Board of Nursing also handles complaints from practicing nurses and in the governance of nursing programs. So let's first talk about education. During your education here at Missouri Southern, we have reinforced that the Nurse Practice Act minimum standards are what sets the rules for the practice of a nurse in the state. It's also, these standards are the basis for discipline of a license, should that occur. If you move out of the state that you are currently residing in and have obtained a license in, you will fall under that particular state's Practice Act. So you'll need to learn that state's Nurse Practice Act, and there are some variations from state to state in terms of your practice. The minimum standards also guide the operation of a school of nursing for pre-licensure programs, such as practical nursing, associate degree programs, baccalaureate degree programs, and programs that offer a licensed practical nurse to RN educational program. We routinely receive visits from the State Board of Nursing, either in person or virtually. We're in constant communication with the State Board. The State Board has the authority to assess the program's compliance to minimum standards and to approve those educational programs through 3 types of approval. They also approve graduates to be eligible to take the national licensure exam or the state board exam. Now, there are 3 types of approvals for educational programs that offer nursing. Full approval means that the program meets all the requirements in the minimum standards, and they are legally operating as a school of nursing. The second type of approval is conditional. And that means some deficiencies have been identified by the State Board of Nursing and or the program that in terms of compliance with the minimum standards, but that program is still allowed to operate as a fully functional school of nursing. And then there's the initial program approval. And this is where new programs that have not fully met all the requirements operate under it. They still need to have a graduating class obtaining at least 80% pass rate on the NCLEX, and that 80% pass rate is for the first time pass of the NCLEX. So the State Board approves schools of nursing, and this is the classification that shows that schools of nursing have met those minimum criteria and allows graduates to take the NCLEX. So those three approval, if they that particular program falls under one of those three types, then their graduates can apply for license to take the licensure exam. Now, this is different from accreditation. Accreditation of nursing programs are under the auspice of national accrediting bodies. For example, Missouri Southern is accredited under the ASIN National Accreditation Program, and these are approved by the United States Department of Education. The university as a whole also has accreditation, and that's under the Higher Learning Commission, which is under the United States Department of Education. So we must meet approval by the state board. Accreditation is also another thing that programs strive for, because this demonstrates that the program meets a national benchmark for accreditation as a school of nursing. But at minimum, we have to have approval from the State Board of Nursing. Complaints to the board can be filed by individuals that are licensed to practice nursing in the state of Missouri, and by students, faculty, or even others in the community. Any complaint goes through due process, and that due process includes the grievance and complaint procedures at an individual program school. When there is a problem with a school that's not being resolved, you have a right to contact the State Board of Nursing and file a complaint. That complaint is a written complaint that outlines the issue, giving detail and evidence of following the particular program's grievance procedures. Those grievance procedures can be found within the student handbook and also the handbook for students of the university. Once that complaint is filed with the State Board of Nursing, the board will evaluate that and determine if there needs to be some form of intervention directly. And the State Board will reach out to that program in that event. So the minimum standards for the State Board of Nursing and other state boards establishes the required curricular content, or the topics of what is studied in that particular program and are required by the State Board of Nursing. Now, how that school chooses to deliver the curricular content is up to that school. So, for example, how lesson plans are written by instructors, lectures are developed, exams are developed, or other assessment measures are developed. Standardized testing, such as what is experienced in the Missouri Southern program of nursing, cannot determine a student passing or failing a particular program, but it can affect your grade. Plus, standardized testing like the HESI testing that is used at Missouri Southern There are other standardized testing such as ATI. These are a very effective self-assessment tool, as we have stressed throughout the program. They will tell you, what areas of your learning are maybe need to be remediated or at the minimum reviewed to ensure that you're making satisfactory progress in achieving the benchmarks in the program and are prepared to practice as a nurse and take your licensure exam. You can obtain most of this information, if not all, from the Board of Nursing website, which is located here in this slide. It gives you education information particular to schools of nursing, so what their approval status is, their contact information, and it also provides pass rates. There's a 5-year review of all schools of nursing, and you can find this on the nursing website. It also includes the numbers that are enrolled in graduation data, such as retention and attrition data. So the rule is a program of nursing must have an annual pass rate of 80% first time. If a school does not incur an annual pass rate first time of 80%, then what that does is it triggers a plan of action for that particular program, which has to be completed. And within that plan of action, the program data is used and information of the program is used and analyzed into trying to determine how to best meet the needs of the student in achieving that first time pass rate. So when you graduate, you will be able to practice as a graduate nurse for registered nurses or a graduate practical nurse for licensed practical nursing programs. And that status starts when you graduate. It ends 90 days after graduation or upon receipt of your NCLEX results, whatever is first. So if you pass the NCLEX on the first time, you will automatically be licensed. If you fail the first time, you cannot practice even as a registered nurse, even if those 90 days are not over. So for example, you graduate in December, you apply for your licensure, take your exam, and you pass, then you can be practicing as a registered nurse. If you fail, you will not be able to practice as a graduate nurse from that point onwards. Now, when you get ready to apply for the licensure exam for approval to test in the state of Missouri, there are several steps in that process and forms that have to be completed, fingerprinting, background checked, and a notarization of the application that you meet the requirements in terms of U.S. citizenship or lawfully being in the country. Knowing your correct NCLEX program code is very important in the steps of the application, and we will provide that for you. This has to be correct on your application to be able to take the NCLEX and to set for the exam. You will also need 2 forms of identification. So for example, most commonly your United States birth certificate is used, and then a official photo ID or identification. You have to make sure everything matches on your application and when you apply to sit for the exam. So for example, your name, address, social security number. If this does not match, comparing your application to your sitting applying to actually take the test, then they will not let you test. So it's very important that all of this information matches exactly. Now, to prepare for the NCLEX, you want to schedule as soon as possible. It is best not to wait to test. Some scholars that have researched this suggest testing in the window between 3 and 6 weeks. So you don't want to wait to test. You also don't want to wait to study. You cannot cram for this test. You want to be reviewing, remediating, taking questions every day. And even though this slide says start now, honestly, so as I was saying, you don't want to cram for the NCLEX. Actual preparation, as we have tried to reinforce currently, begins the first day of the program, so in your junior year. So if you are getting ready to graduate, you certainly do have time to prepare for the NCLEX. And how you do this is by getting a plan to study every day, to take and read questions every day up until the point that you're ready to set for the exam. So this process starts now for you all. The NCLEX blueprint and standardized tests are excellent study guides to help you in preparing for the NCLEX exam. So, for example, the results of your HESI exit exam are a great way to identify those areas that maybe you're just not solid yet on, to improve your clinical judgment, critical thinking skills, to help you to prepare for this very important exam. Know your lab values. So it is, in addition to your study, it's important to understand and know lab values and any other types of parameters or diagnostics that are used to be able to make good judgments for your patients that you will eventually be taking care of. I do not recommend that a student who has applied for licensure, been approved, and is ready to sit for the exam, and now you have an exam date, to work during that particular week. You need to spend every waking minute that you can studying and preparing for the exam. And working, for example, the day before your exam is not probably a good idea. You want to get a good restful night's sleep. You want to be eating healthy, taking a walk, doing those things that will help your frame of mind to be able to successfully meet this endpoint in your studies. It is very important that you come prepared to the testing environment and that you're there early. So at least 30 minutes before your testing time. If you are late, you will not be able to test. Here is the current contact information for the Missouri State Board of Nursing. So Miss B.B. Schultz, Ryan House, and Mallory Ainsworth are your points of contact should you have any questions about the state board and its function. Okay, now let's walk through the elements of applying for a license in the state of Missouri, and it begins with your application. Now, I'll be posting several documents in Blackboard that will provides you with information on the steps of how to apply, the application itself, and information about fingerprints and all of that. So one of those documents includes this document, which I'll show you here shortly. This is kind of a step-by-step instruction sheet for applying for Missouri licensure. So it walks through the nursing compact, what that means, and then the various steps. There are links to important websites such as the criminal background check fingerprinting website that you will have to do, and also the information if you answer yes to any of the screening questions that have to be notarized separately. For example, if you've been charged with a crime such as drunk driving, we cannot guarantee that the State Board of Nursing will allow you to test. And that is provided to you when you enter the program. So you have to provide supporting documents to the state board, and those have to be shown and notarized just like your proof of citizenship or lawful presence in this country. So look for this document. This is a very important document for you as you complete your application form. It also provides information about registering for the exam itself once you are approved by the State Board of Nursing to do this. And you can find this link right here once you get that approval to test. Now, I will say this, in addition to making sure that your personal information is correct, for example, your name, your address, your social security number, it is vitally important that you give an email address that you will be using and regularly watching for permission to test. They will send it more than likely to your email, that or authorization to test. So make sure you put your email address that you will be using after you graduate. It's also helpful for us when you graduate to put on the graduate card that I'll be posting as well, the email that you will be most readily where we can contact you after you graduate. At the 6-month mark and year mark, after graduation, we send out a survey that is very important to us as a program in maintaining compliance with the minimum standards of the State Board of Nursing. So look at this document in great detail. So the NCLEX can be taken in any state that's convenient to you. However, your practice is where you provide patient care at the time the services are rendered. So you must have a license where you practice. Most generally, it will be in your state of residence. So, for example, you may have came to Missouri Southern for your education in Missouri, but you actually reside in a different state and you're going back to that state to practice. So you will need to apply for licensure and to sit for that exam in that particular state. The Nurse Licensure Compact Act was initiated several years ago, and this is basically a multi-state license. And if a particular state is a part of that compact, such as Missouri, then a nurse can actually practice in another compact state. And this is a great thing that came about several years ago. So it's much like your practice your license to practice nursing in these compact states is much like having a driver's license to practice or to drive. So in another state that's a compact state, you can practice as a nurse, but just be mindful when you're practicing in that other state, you are responsible for the standards in that particular state's State Board of Nursing standards. So you're not practicing under Missouri, you're practicing, say, under another compact state like Arkansas or perhaps another state. So this is the current participating states in the Compact Act, and you'll notice we have several neighboring states that are part of that compact. And I will say this, there are states coming on board every day and every year with the compact licensure. So, this is kind of a living thing, and it's going to change as the years go by. So Missouri became a member of the compact in June of 2010. Now, if your primary address is in another state that is a member of that compact, then you must apply for licensure in that state. So like the example I gave you, if you're attending school in Missouri but live in Colorado and intend to practice in Colorado, then you must apply for licensure in Colorado. If you live in a non-compact state but apply for your license in Missouri, you will receive a single state license that is only valid in Missouri. So you can begin practicing as a nurse in any state that's a member of the compact as long as you have a multi-state license. If you move to another compact state, you must apply for a license in that state, and your Missouri license will be deactivated. If you move to another state that's not a member of the compact, your Missouri license will become a single state license, valid only when you practice in the state of Missouri. Okay, so we're right at the 2-month mark for graduation. Actually, we're a little beyond that. So I will upload the application to the leadership course, and you will be able to download that and start filling that out, what you need to do now. You want to submit the completed application just as soon as we can get that notarized for you, and it's all completed to the State Board of Nursing, and you can do that by mail. Now, other states have an electronic process for applying. For example, Arkansas and Iowa have an electronic process, so you will have to follow that process to apply to that particular state. In addition for Missouri, you have to get fingerprinted, and this is a 3-step process. So you go to that website online, you register, you schedule an appointment to get fingerprinted, and then you go get fingerprinted. And that's true of most any other state as well. So once you're approved, your application is approved, you can register for the NCLEX at least about a week before you graduate. So all the registration information must match your board application, including that email address, and you will need to have an email address in order to receive your authorization to test. So the United States and state laws require the board to verify legal residency in the United States. If you're not a citizen of the United States, You will be required to submit proof of a legal residence, such as a permanent resident card or immigration forms, and you will need to bring that with you on the date that we will be notarizing your applications. Also, people that are residents of the United States will need to bring proof in terms of your residency as U.S. citizens on that date that we will be notarizing the applications. We won't be able to notarize applications if we do not have proof of this. So please be sure you're prepared with the required documents and completed application. It's important to be honest and forthright in your application because you will get a criminal history background check, and all information must match your application. If it doesn't match, then you will more than likely be required to do another background check at your own expense. And this will delay your processing of your application and being able to set for the exam. If you have been charged with a criminal offense, or you have certain documents of judgment, probation, and so forth, all criminal history is reviewed on a case-by-case basis by the State Board of Nursing. So you will have to bring those documents as well to submit to be notarized, with statements explaining all of your criminal offenses and certified court documents. We won't notarize it unless we have that information, if you fall in this case. If there's evidence of potential substance use disorder, you may be sent a chemical dependency packet. So that's why it's very important to be totally and fully honest on your application. Board members use that information in that packet to help them make a decision whether or not you're eligible to sit for licensure. If a charge appears on your background check that's not been disclosed in your application, you will be notified by mail, and you will need to submit certified court documents and explain the charge, and this can further delay your process of application. So even a suspension of the sentence or diversion does not necessarily mean that your criminal history has been removed from your record. So that's another reason why it's very important to disclose all of this in your application. So you can request testing accommodations for the NCLEX exam. You will send that information to the board. There's a document that you will complete for testing accommodations, and that can be found on the Missouri State Board website, and other state boards have this option as well. It's under the link Licensure Information and Forms. If you're approved for testing accommodations, you'll be notified by mail. So that's another reason why it's important to have your information correct on your application, where you can be contacted, and those accommodations will be added to your NCLEX registration on that Pearson VUE website where you register to sit for the exam. So after graduation, we will send an official transcript with the graduation date and the degree earned. All this identifying information on the transcript must match the application, or a new transcript may be requested. And this will delay the processing of your application. So upon receipt of the transcript, the board will make you eligible, and you will receive your authorization to test by email from Pearson VUE. As I mentioned earlier, you have 90 days to practice as a graduate nurse or until you take the NCLEX within that 90 days. After you pass the NCLEX, the board is notified the following business day and the results will be mailed to you. But you can pay for unofficial results, but they are unofficial and the board cannot release your results over the phone. Many of our students have paid for this unofficial result simply because they want to know, and it is reported on the NCLEX or the National Licensure Board. I would also ask this of you. It is very difficult for the program to track our graduates' success on the NCLEX exam. So we would greatly appreciate that you complete the graduate nurse release form for the state of Missouri, which I will post along with those other documents, which gives the State Board of Nursing permission to release your licensure results. Now, this is totally voluntary, as is the other request I would ask from you is that you keep in touch with us on how you're progressing and getting ready for the licensure exam. Send us a note that you passed, and send us a note if you did not pass. That helps us to be able to track our graduates and make good decisions for the program. When you pass the NCLEX, you'll receive an official letter stating that you've passed and you can begin practicing as a nurse. And you will also receive your test results stating pass. If you fail the NCLEX, you will receive a copy of your results along with an application to retake the exam, but you can no longer practice as a graduate nurse. Now, currently we don't have license cards issued by the state of Missouri, so you'll need to verify your license on this website by clicking Quick Confirm, and your employer will do that as well. That's how we commonly verify licenses for nurses with any employment. After your licensure, you'll need to enroll in e-Notify, and by enrolling in that, you will be sent an email anytime the status of your license changes. For example, it will send you an email reminder 30 days prior to your expiration to renew your license, and you do have to renew. It also keeps the board informed of any address changes, and the address change form for the state board is found on their website. So some final application tips. Your name, your social security number, date of birth, and address must match on your application to the board, the NCLEX registration, and fingerprints. Any discrepancies will cause delays and may require you to have to repeat the steps and repay the fees. So this is what the nurse's website looks like. It's very helpful in being able to quick confirm license verification and to send you emails or notifications whenever there are changes to your license. Right, here's a helpful video. It talks quite a bit about nurses and the e-Notify system. LPNs and RNs renew in opposite years. So LPN license expires May 31st of even years and RN license April 30th of odd years. The state board sends out a renewal postcard mailed to the last known address, so that's another good reason why to keep your address up to date, 3 months prior to the expiration date with instructions on how to do that, to renew your license. It's your responsibility to keep the board informed of your current address. Don't wait until the last minute to renew your license. You do not want that license to lapse. It normally takes about a week for the renewal process to take place. I actually renew my license online generally. here's some final contact information for the State Board of Nursing, and they're very quick to respond to any questions that you might have or help. And please reach out to me or one of your other instructors, of course, if you have any questions about this information. So this is the other document that I will be posting that you will need to download and start the process of filling it out. So we can notarize this on the date that I will provide in the course announcement. So please download this and fill it out. I believe it is, you can fill it out in a PDF form. It goes through the steps such as alien status declaration, the residency requirements. None of you have probably taken the registered nurse license before, but some of you may be LPN, so you have to disclose that on your application. And then these are the screening questions I talked about that you need to answer fully and honestly, and then provide separate notarized statements of any yes declarations for these questions. And then when this is complete, we'll notarize this, verifying your residency and citizenship and any other documents that we need to notarize. Okay, thank you very much. That is the end of this presentation. I greatly appreciate your time, and don't hesitate to reach out. If you have questions, please take note of the date that we will be notarizing applications on the course announcements.